Welcome everyone to On Podcast, the On Microsoft podcast, where we talk about Microsoft stuff on a podcast. I am your host today, Kareem Anderson, and I'm joined by
David Allen. The fun one has returned another week.
and we actually have some fun news to accompany that. This is no longer the slow week of news from Microsoft. We are getting into it, and we have some big revelations to go over. Our opening discussion today is going to be about Microsoft's pivot with the Surface Duo 3. Here we are in 2023 talking about a non-existent device because Microsoft took last year off, and based on this news, looks like they're going to be taking this year off as well. Microsoft may be looking for a brand new name for its latest foray into smartphones, as the next Surface Duo will reportedly ditch its dual screens for a single foldable screen, akin of the Oppo Find, Vivo X Fold, the more famous Samsung Galaxy Fold versions 1 through 4. According to Zach Bowden over Windows Central, sources close to the project have shared that after months of prototyping and testing, the Microsoft Duo team has settled on going for a more traditional a single foldable screen design with a 180-degree hinge and an internal foldable screen, as well as an accompanying external display. Again, just like the Fold. As Microsoft comes more in line with the rest of the industry regarding foldable designs, it will buttress against standing out and claiming a purchase stake from customers because it'll be just like every other device. Its selling point used to be that it was a dual screen folding device versus, more traditional foldable device. Fortunately, the company seems aware of the inevitability of becoming an also-ran and is working on a software experience dubbed Perfect Together, according to Bowden. Microsoft's Perfect Together software package will aim at creating a cross-platform ecosystem between PCs and Android powered devices, similar to the iPhone, its connection to a MacBook or whatnot, which should, I guess, mean better pairing, more feature sets for texting and image sharing, content sharing between devices, things of that nature. While pivoting on the Duo's design, Microsoft may also be backtracking on a previous smartphone redline, which is revisiting traditional slap phone manufacturing as well. That's right. All you Windows Phone fans out there whose hair just kind of stood up on the back of your neck, we are potentially going to see another Microsoft powered smartphone that looks like a regular smartphone. Once again, Bowden sources say the Surface team has been exploring different form factors that include the old single screen, non-transformable candy bar smartphone design, and could ship a mainstream Surface phone smartphone offering in addition to the foldable one, and leaving the foldable one to be the more exotic offering from the device maker. So where Microsoft might sell potentially more Surface laptops than they do Surface Pros, they will leave the Surface Pro out there as an aspirational device. Or I guess it'd be more akin to the Surface Pro, actually, because I think that sells more, and the Surface Laptop Studio. So what are your thoughts on this development?
I think this is a big deal. I'm happy to see Microsoft jumping back into the smartphone market. I know we talked about, I should say that differently, just jumping into the smartphone market differently and kind of doing what everybody else is doing. I know you've got a Duo. I have not personally owned a Duo, but I have spent quite a bit of time playing with one. I'm not a fan of the double independent screens like that. I prefer the foldable type, and I know our editor in chief has the Z Fold 4, and he has talked about how nice that type of folding mechanism is for some time now. We've kind of talked internally about what operating system that phone should run. I think it might have been you on our team that had mentioned maybe the phone should run Windows, or some sort of
Oh no,
Windows
I
hybrid.
was yeah. I was an advocate for keeping with Android. I believe was it Dave, I think might have
Yeah, maybe
mentioned
it was Dave.
it. Yeah.
And, we kind of talked about that. And I think it's important for Microsoft to stick with Android. I don't think the consumer market wants to see a third phone. or a third operating system. We had, BlackBerry came back for a little while several years ago. They tried a different BlackBerry OS and they switched to Android and tried to make it as a hardware maker. They haven't made it. And I just don't think people, as far as you and I, basic everyday consumers, are ready for a third choice. So I think make a foldable phone, something Samsung-ish, Z Fold 4, something in that area. Make it Surface quality, where it's got the Surface branding, the Surface build quality. And I think people would pick that up. I know I would if it's got the Microsoft integration to Windows and other Microsoft products. Make that easy, make it fit the Microsoft ecosystem. I'm all for it. I would buy it. I would buy it today if it were available.
See, this is where you and I would differ. And I wrote a whole editorial that released earlier this weekend. And I would hope people go read it because I have lots of opinions. Hopefully, some of you agree with them. And for those of you who don't, we could have a discussion. But I kind of wrote this piece dubbing Microsoft's third time is not the charm. Like, I don't believe this pivot to follow Samsung will pay off. Not that the Surface Duo was doing gangbusters to begin with. Let's be, crystal clear that it was a very niche device that didn't do very well, both in terms of sales, in terms of supposed branding, in terms of consumer awareness. It didn't meet the mark on any of those metrics to say that it was a relatively successful device. So I'm making that clear. My opinions are based with that aspect in mind. What I do want to say is that because of the way Microsoft's pivoting to essentially following Samsung, following Vivo, following the Honor Magic, following Oppo, of these, following this design in a effort to potentially save money. We will note that following this technology is a cost-saving measure for them because it's already established. It's been well refined. It's easier to source the same parts as everyone else. You can just say, give me a foldable screen at these aspect ratios, and it's easier to cut those than it is to say, make me two independent OLED screens at this aspect ratio that no one else is using or will ever use. Manufacturers will say, well, you're going to keep paying the high price because we can't do it at scale. That all being said, Microsoft will lose its differentiating factor. It will lose the grace I believe reviewers who were fond of the device were giving it because it was a unique thing. And Microsoft has yet to do the hard work of establishing distribution channels that are reliable in the smartphone world. Even as they, plowed away at Windows Phone 7, 7.1, 7.5, 8, 8. All of those, Windows 10 Mobile, all of the iterations, they still never did the full work of delivering phones, delivering software in a regular, timely manner. As much as we used to get on Samsung about not being able to deliver software updates, they produced a phone every year. That was their solution. If you couldn't get the software update, get the new phone. Microsoft has been fickle, to say it nicely, about any of that kind of stuff. Sometimes they have a new phone, sometimes they wait some time to do it. Sometimes they deliver software updates, sometimes they don't. Software updates come with bugs, they don't fix them for a long time. Like, we're going to be going on almost 3 years in between the Duo 2 and whatever this new device is called. And people don't have time in their lives to wait on devices as enthusiasts do, if you would agree with me. As much as you said you would buy this phone, imagine if you had a contract like, some people who bought the first Duo did with AT&T or whatever, limited amount of carriers they had internationally speaking. You're running up against the end of your contract this year, and you won't be seeing another phone for a while. Not to say that you need to get a new phone, but some people do. They like to get a new phone. They like to be rewarded, having invested their money and saying, all right, or the carriers offer them incentives to get a new phone. The best thing that they can probably get will be the Fold 4, potentially the Fold 5, or whatever Google's offering. And they'll get that for a year before Microsoft even comes out with whatever this phone is. That's not a way to establish anything. Microsoft also doesn't have the sticky factor, which is accessories that tie into this hardware that make people invested in it. If you buy a Galaxy Fold, you are invested in getting earbuds, a watch, following the health metrics on the apps that are available on these devices. Microsoft doesn't have any of that. It has none of that established. It hasn't been doing any of that. We don't know if the Surface Buds, they were nice when they came out a couple years ago, but they haven't kept up with the market. They haven't updated those things. They haven't redefined the design. They're not offering that. They're not offering a smart watch. I'm not saying that they, need to bring back the Microsoft Band, but maybe an Oura Ring would be better fit for them. Just something that says, "Hey, I have a Duo and I have these things. This is why I will stick with Duo for the next 2, 3, 4 iterations because I have these accessories that work with it, not just some random Windows PC that I can ship out or change whenever I need to. The phone doesn't have any tie into that." So I think when they move to this switch, as I said in my piece, it is kind of feeling like a Windows 10 mobile moment where they're chasing something when they could have been working parallel at their own time alongside of it. And I made an analogy that this is following Windows 10 Mobile when they should be following the Surface Pro. The Surface Pro came out, they, bucked the trend of everyone having clamshell laptops. People panned it. They ridiculed the first version. They ridiculed the second version. The third one came out and it caught some mainstream attention for, whatever niche audience that was. But, they just kept tinkering at it and fixing things, made the screen bigger, settled on the type cover versus the touch cover, settled on offering colors for that, put a pin loop in there, made the screen bigger, added better connectivity, longer battery life. They fixed the hinge from the 2-point system that it was at to, 100. Well, I forget the whatever degree that it could change to. Like all of those things came instead of just pivoting to quickly making the Surface laptop, which they could have easily done. They could have, Microsoft's always said like they could just make a laptop. They chose to do the Pro, and they stuck with that vision. But again, Surface Pro 3 could have just been the Surface Laptop 1. And that could have been the end of the day. And I feel like that's what they're doing here.
I can see that point, and I don't totally disagree with you. I think you're right in the aspect, but something we were talking about in our little internal chat is I think Microsoft is looking, as you mentioned, they don't have the ecosystem. Do they have any interest in building the ecosystem? I think is the question. And I think it goes all the way back to the phone that I'm holding in my hand. I've got one of the old Samsung Galaxy 10 that's got, the whole link to Windows thing. And that was the catch to me that Microsoft has a software interest in being part of an ecosystem. Of course, they're not going to go play with Apple. Apple's not going to allow that, even if Microsoft wanted to. So their choice is build their own ecosystem again by building their own software, kind of like they did with Windows Phone, or go partner with Android. And I don't know that they have any aspirations or any interest of going, let's try Windows Mobile again. That, hey, we're going to go partner with Android. It's open source. Everybody plays well, and we can kind of do what we want to do. And I think you're seeing that with what's out there now. I think the question is, where are we in 2 years when we see this device? What is Microsoft thinking from a software standpoint? Are they going to do something and surprise us and say, look, this phone will do something that the Samsung phone won't do? Could be. Maybe I'm off base, but they may come up with something, or it may just be, hey, here's a Samsung competitor, that competes with the Samsung Z Fold 5 or 6, wherever we are by the time that comes out. Pick whichever one you want.
Oh no, I agree with you. I think Microsoft has proven that they can do software. I mean, that is their bread and butter. Now, for the Duo, it was questionable. They fixed it since then, but it came out kind of rocky. I'm not questioning the software. And I'm not even necessarily questioning the hardware. The Duo is an impressively thin device. It does 360-degree fold around, something that nobody in the industry is doing, which is great. My concern is that Microsoft hasn't done any of the foundational work to make the phone accessible if it were to become a hit. So say, they come out with something that's amazing in the software and amazing integration for Windows, and the hardware is perfected. The hinge, the way it folds, there's no gap in the middle. The screen technology does the scratch. It's the perfect device. I'm saying what they haven't done is gotten deals with carriers, build up a support system for customer support, warranties, buyback programs. The way that Samsung, and even Apple in the last couple of years have pushed and made their devices, the stalwarts of the industry, is by getting them in the hands of people. And Microsoft has actually backtracked and clawed its way away from that by, the Surface Duo, here in the United States was the first one was on AT&T. That was the only place you could get it if you weren't going to go buy it directly from their website at full price. Internationally speaking, that those numbers increase. Like we're facing inflation, we're facing potential recession, global recession, and Microsoft is saying, hey, we have this device that is exclusive. You can buy it from our website, buy it unlocked. We don't want to deal with carriers, and people are saying we can't get a hold of it. As amazing as it is, I can't go into a store and get it. I can't if something were to break on it, I can't go into a store and get it fixed. I can't talk to somebody as immediately as I need to. Uh, my old phone, I have a Samsung, I have the latest Samsung. I'd like to trade it in. Samsung's going to give me, you know, $700 plus free earbuds and a watch to get their new phone, even though their phone's $1,700. By the end of the deal, I'm paying $500 for it. You're telling me to come get your phone for 14.9, or even if they get the price down to $900, $900 with nothing attached to it. Like, that's not a deal for people. And Microsoft hasn't done the footwork for that. The other thing they haven't done the footwork for is camera tech. They have devices that have cameras, and the last time we've heard them mention camera tech in any, I don't know, concerted way, I would say is with the Lumia devices. Like, there is no pressing impetus for them to say, hey, we are doing pixel bending in the Surface Pro. We are, adding these lenses to get you, four different fields of view and things like they don't say any of that. And I don't see them coming out with the next Surface with that kind of technology. Like, they're just not working on it, at least not actively that we know of, to put in these devices.
I can't argue with that either. I think the only thing that I could mention is I never thought, and I could be wrong here, I never thought the Surface Duo was meant to be a consumer phone for the reasons that you just mentioned. Because to me, a consumer phone is I can walk into any carrier, I can get the payment plan, the 36 months, 24 months, whatever they offer. I can do a trade in. And you're right in what you said. I never thought the Duo, whichever version it was, one or two, was meant to be for the consumer market. It was certainly never put out there as the consumer market. And I don't recall seeing it on Microsoft's website very prominent on the consumer pages. Now, it was very prominent on the business pages. It was kind of on the back pages of what you might say the consumer stuff was. So I guess we could make the argument, does Microsoft intend for it to be a consumer device, this new device
Well,
coming up, or
and I wrote about that
do
because the
they
idea is, okay.
go ahead?
Well, I wrote about that saying that with the Duo, they were given grace because it was uniquely its own device. So they could always pivot to saying, like, hey, this isn't like the Galaxy Fold. It doesn't operate the same, doesn't look the same, it doesn't, work the same way. So we're selling it to a different customer base. But when you go and follow the Fold, the Oppo, and by things that consumers can get their hands on, you lose all of that grace. You lose any of that branding. You can't say, like, hey, this is a niche device for only business people, because business people can go get a Fold. They can easily get a Fold. They can get it at in mass too. They can buy their entire office a Fold if they wanted to. Microsoft following them is going to have to be able to provide the same level of accessibility if they're going to follow that design. So that's what I'm saying. Like, going to a single screen, they're going to be beholden to the same single screen expectancies from everybody. So it'll be interesting to see how this pivot goes. We're again probably a year out from even any inclinations of it coming. So I'll have to reserve all of these opinions for that time.
And I'll say one more thing that I don't think
Mhm.
anybody has brought up. I didn't see a mention of it in your article. I haven't seen any mention of it in other articles. Microsoft has this device that runs on an ARM chip.
Oh
Phones
yeah.
run on an ARM chip. And I think there was a YouTuber, I believe it was Shane something, that showed I'm
Oh,
getting in the
Shane
weeds
Craig.
here, folks, just a little bit, that showed a hack to where you could remote desktop with an existing Duo or something along those lines. Now, the killer feature would be you've got your, let's call it the Duo 3 for talking purposes. You've got your Duo 3 there. Maybe you do like Samsung does with their DeX. You plug it in and maybe you get some sort of Windows desktop and you can run your Windows apps because maybe you've got that ARM chip in there that goes with this Surface ARM device that they keep hanging out there for some reason. They keep plowing at it, and I've always thought they're plowing with that device for something. It's not a mainstream device. It's not selling millions a day or anything. They're plowing with that ARM chip for a reason. Maybe this has something to do with it. Just a thought. It may.
You could be the Surface Whisperer. I will actually keep my hopes up for something of that nature because that does sound intriguing.
All right. Let's see what they
We
do.
will
Let's see what they give us.
Yeah, we'll leave that opened and let's get into our headlines now for regular news that isn't about Surface hardware or Microsoft pivots. What do you got for us?
All right, got something simple to start us off. Microsoft this week has announced a Microsoft 365 Basic, which I think is kind of interesting. I think this hits 99% of people, and basically what you have here is you're going to get 100 gig of OneDrive space. You're getting the Microsoft 365 apps, but you're only getting the web version of those apps, which for most people, I think that may be enough. For your homework doers out there, you're putting together a quick document. You do get the full apps on your phone, the Word, the PowerPoint, etc. So, that does beat paying, what is it, $6.99 a person for the regular subscription. So if you're just a student, you're a homework doer, and you want that $1.99 subscription, jump out there and get it. I think this is a good thing for Microsoft to break in. It kind of undercuts Google Apps just a little bit, or Google Workspace a little bit. Check it out. I mean, when it came across, it kind of surprised me that it was coming across, so cheap. To be honest, I think for most people, 100 gig is enough. You can store your photos, store your documents, unless you're a big photo taker and you've got a bunch of photos. $1.99 a month, documents, a little bit of storage, able to share. You're not being crippled. They're not giving you Microsoft Office 1/2 or anything. It's the full thing. Go for it.
Yeah, no, this is a pretty nice carrot on the stick for people. So,
Mm-hmm.
just like you, I'd say at least give it a shot. I mean, you you fair to lose yourself more money buying a soda for a day than to test out something for a month.
Yeah, I think this, $1.99 could be a cash cow for them if you think about it. I mean, most people are, hey, my kid needs a way to do their homework. I don't want to buy the desktop apps because we've got multiple machines in the house. They don't want to deal with learning how to save something to the cloud because remember, your desktop app, when you click save, you've got choices there. Where do you want to put it? Do you want to put it on local PC?
Yeah.
You want to put it in the cloud? And we have to look at this from a consumer point of view. You and I don't have a problem picking the space to put that document. The average consumer, I know plenty.
I mean,
Microsoft.
just joking wise,
Yeah.
you could use this $1.99 as your, and I'm sure Outlook is going to hate me for saying this, but this could be your junk email if you're
Yeah.
having trouble finding space, because I believe my wife uses Gmail constantly. She's always complaining about, trying to find space. She's like, I've deleted stuff, I've moved things, and I just can't get enough space for my Gmail. Or you have, you've signed up for a bunch of stuff that you're now getting spam for because you no longer are interested in the product or the service or whatever, but you want to keep an eye on the emails or notifications, or you just don't have time to go around and deleting all those. You can start sending people your Outlook email saying, you know what, get in contact with me over here. For $1.99, I send all of that stuff to that email and I don't have to be bothered with it. But if I need to, I can go back and check it out. And on top of it, like you said, you get storage.
I think that's a good idea. And I'm going to tell on myself here for just a second. If you were to possibly open my Gmail account, there may or may not be 450,000 messages in that account. Where things have just kind of stacked up for the last 15 years. So that's not a bad idea. Microsoft might not like it, but good idea.
Exactly. And the other deal is that they have been pushing people to OneDrive storage on Samsung devices for the last 2 or 3 years now. So if you have had a Samsung device and you are running up against your storage limit, your free storage limit, hopping onto a $199 deal to continue doing the phone, I believe, photo link or whatever it's called, to make sure your photos automatically saved to OneDrive, may be the right solution for you at this time.
A lot of choices there for $2.
Yes. Our next story is about Microsoft taking that $199 and turning it into a $10 billion investment in ChatGPT's OpenAI. Microsoft and OpenAI are looking to formalize their ongoing technical relationship with a potential $10 billion investment in the hot commodity ChatGPT. As the Scoop reports, and that's the name of the publication, people familiar with the deal have seen documents sent to investors outlining the terms for a $29 billion round of funding from several venture firms that includes a substantial $10 billion stake from Microsoft for their artificially intelligent chatbot client. As of this reporting, there's yet to be an official deal to be signed by any parties, despite several documents indicating that they had a desire to close the deal by the end of 2022. Barring any outstanding last-minute negotiations on the proposed deal, Microsoft would retain 75% of OpenAI's profits on projects until it can recoup its initial investment, at which time, once it does recoup, Microsoft would retain a 49% stake in OpenAI, and then it would become a more diverse ownership with other investors gaining control of the other 49%, collectively, however they divide that up. And OpenAI's nonprofit business, which is the partner company, would collect on the other 2% of the pie. So for those of you who have been living under a rock, ChatGPT has been the latest thing to be talked about in headlines. It's an AI bot service that, when given natural language queries, can spit out, poems or thesis statements or whatever whatever you're asking it to do. It can write up basically a language to it, or chat about it, or articles about it, things like that, and it does a pretty good job of doing so. For those of you who know about it but don't know the details behind it, OpenAI is as it says, is an AI, artificial intelligence company. Microsoft has worked with them before, and I believe we wrote about this in their I believe it's OpenAI, GitHub, and Microsoft partnership for Copilot, which is a program where they are leveraging GitHub to basically start crafting code for developers. It's an automatic code generator, which also leverages machine learning and artificial intelligence to spit out code for, say, game developers who are looking for non-playable character dialogue. So instead of having to sit there and write your own code for 230 non-playable characters, you can just tell this Copilot to say, hey, I need a script for a handmaiden in some open world some open world journey game. Can you give me one? And it'll spit out code for it, and you can just plug it into your game, and then you can move on to being more creative about something else. So Microsoft is continuing that partnership. The 10 billion will probably span all of that partnership, not just Chat GPT, but all the other efforts, and kind of solidify them in the AI battle, the AI battles to come between its own competitors, which I believe Google is also getting big into AI as well, or has been big in AI.
This is awesome. I've actually had a chance this week to sit down and play with this tool a little bit. And like you mentioned, it's amazing what it will do. Just to give the techies some clue out there, I was able to get it to write perfectly good working Linux shell scripts this week. It would write out WordPress configuration files. If you put your specifications in there for what you wanted, it would write them out. And let me be clear, they were wrote out perfectly, and they were perfectly good working, files if you just copied and pasted them in. And there was also something I read just to make it a little interesting, where there's already students that are using this project to write their term papers. So there was another student that has wrote an algorithm to detect whether OpenAI wrote their paper or not.
Ooh.
So this is going to be interesting to see where this goes. I think, this is the next step in modern day computing. We've had AI a little bit with our virtual assistants, our Alexas, our Siris, our Cortanas, rest in peace, of the world. And Microsoft's investing instead of doing, a lot of this themselves. So I'm curious too as to what the developers behind the Microsoft walls think of this.
That's a good question.
We couldn't pull it off, and now we've gone and invested billions of dollars into another project. So it also makes me wonder, what do those devs think?
Well, I mean, as you and I mentioned, perhaps they saw what we saw, and that the pivot in AI isn't digital assistants that you speak to and have conversations back and forth with, but assisting software that is constantly doing things to help you out throughout your day, based on incalculable number of calculations as to your workflow. So instead of saying, "Hey, Cortana, pull up my calendar so I can see what my schedule is," it knows that typically on Thursdays at whatever time you tend to have a meeting. So it surfaces that meeting as a notification, and all of the other things that come along with it, saying like, "Oh, so-and-so might be late to it. They've already responded. I've sent out a response on your behalf saying, okay, we'll meet you there." That kind of stuff it's less of a formal interaction back and forth and more of just software doing things constantly.
And two, I think we're going to hit a debate here of, at some point, how real do we want these things to be?
Very true.
I think at some point we're going to hit that debate too. They're going to be like, okay, these things are too human-like, and you're going to get people on both sides of the equation. There's going to be people that like them, and there's going to be people that don't like them. Just like some people, I've got a neighbor, can't stand Alexa, can't stand Siri, doesn't like any of it. But I think this is where we are, and there's going to be arguments, or is all the information these AI things are spitting out, is it accurate? I mean, I have asked OpenAI some questions and got some pretty obscure answers. So, just be aware they're not 100% accurate yet, but we're just getting started. I think we're going to get there, and I think we're going to start seeing this built into our apps. I know I've seen something where Microsoft is already working on building this into Microsoft Office. So I think we're kind of in that next step of computing, next step of technology. Where does it take us?
Yeah. What do you got for us next?
Well, I'm going to skip around a little bit here. We've got, for you Apple fans out there, the few of you that may be watching this podcast, we've got Apple Music and TV is coming to the Microsoft Store in preview form. Now, this does replace the iTunes Connect apps that are out there. They are available in preview in the Microsoft Store, and There are expected to replace those, and it's the full player. I want to make that clear. That was something that was brought up. It's the full player. You can open up your Apple TV. I have had a chance to check it out. If you've got your Apple TV app or your Apple Music app, say on a Roku or an Xbox, they're basically bringing you full access to it, and you do have access to anything in your Apple library inside of that app. You no longer have to do the whole download the iTunes software, sign in, keep it inside of the iTunes software. So good to see. And you've also, if you tinker around, Apple is coming out with something for VR. Right now it's codenamed VR OS. So you will have access, according to what is in the beta apps here, to whatever those VR components are. You'll have full access to your Apple devices also. You can control your phone, your Apple TV. There's probably some iPad integration in there as well. Maybe even something with a MacBook. But it's nice to see these two companies playing together, bringing the ecosystems together. I think the whole catch is everybody can have their specific ecosystem. There's no problem with that, but it's nice to see Microsoft opening the door to give access, and it's nice to see Apple opening the door saying, look, we will give Windows users better access to their content and being able to control their devices.
Sounds good. What I got up next is Microsoft offering unlimited paid time off to its employees. We're wondering, is that a bad thing? In a memo sent out to Microsoft US employees early today, that would be earlier this week, the company announced that it's switching to a new discretionary time off policy for salaried US workers beginning January 16th. So Monday. These workers won't have to wait until they accrue vacation benefits, and they are still offered 10 corporate holidays, leave of absence, sick days, or mental health time off, and jury duty and bereavement leaves. This sounds ideal. Instead of accruing vacation days, which in the event an employee were to leave the company could be cashed in, salaried Microsoft employees would now be able to take days off at their own discretion. Workers on vacation days accrued will be awarded a one-time payout this April, according to the memo. All the vacation days you want seems like something of a dream come true. The number of companies, among them Salesforce, Oracle, Netflix, and Microsoft-owned LinkedIn, all offer unlimited vacation plans. And there are valid reasons for doing so. Companies no longer have to account for workers' vacation days accrued, how many have been used, or how many are left, and they get into squabbles if employees need extra days off here and there because they're counting specific days or an allotment. Less bookwork for the company, less micromanagement of employee behavior, which has taken a hard turn since pre-pandemic days. If you must show up in the office and stay in the office, and evidence to show that employees won't take significant more time off than they do under current policy. So they're just basically trusting employees will continue to work at the same levels that they've been doing. Now, unfortunately for hourly workers at Microsoft, which there are quite a few, and contract workers, I suppose, and everywhere else in the situation, they will not be getting unlimited PTO. So hourly workers, so say if you're working in, like, say, the kitchen or some other cleaning staff, stuff like that, and you work at Microsoft, don't expect unlimited paid time off. Federal and state wages, hourly laws won't allow for that. My thoughts on this were, it seemed great. We know that I believe an actual employee from Microsoft, Christina Warren, had a whole thread on why it isn't, and she makes very valid points that it's kind of a numbers scheme, so to speak, and that's if it's schemey only if you don't take the time that you need. I don't know. What are your thoughts on this?
I think this is an extension of the whole work from home thing. And, that we had during COVID. This is just personal thought here. I'm not, saying that I have read this documented anywhere. But my thing is, if an employee gets their work done, they're being a productive employee. I mean, Microsoft had, most people I would say working that are going to get this are working on projects. Projects have goals. As long as you meet those goals, I think, from the business standpoint, you've done your job, and I think it's good to see Microsoft is focusing a little bit, at least on paper here, on the person, on the employee. Look, if you need that day off to take care of your kid, if you need that day off to take your child to the zoo, or if you just don't feel well that day, you don't necessarily have pressure to go punch a time clock. And I know, at least for mental health, what more could you ask for, knowing that, sure, there's going to be people take advantage of this, folks. That's the workplace. You give an employee an inch, some of them are going to take a mile. But for the ones that are being responsible, I was thinking about it just this morning. It's peace of mind. You get up, you don't feel well, maybe you sit in bed and get your work done, sure, but you're not under that pressure to put on your work clothes, do your hair, etc., get in the car, make the drive, go to Starbucks. You're not under that pressure. I think this is a good thing. The salary workers kind of get cheated a little bit. I will say that. They don't get the same luxury. So if your salary worker, kind of stinks for you, but I'm a fan.
Yeah, I'm a fan. But again, I haven't worked in this thing. I also don't have, at least currently speaking, I don't have days that I accrue to that amount. And like you said, I mean, as Christina said, unless you actually take advantage of that and a company allows you to do so in a manner that works best for you, so you're not just necessarily taking, I'm going to take all the January off. Unrealistically speaking, it could seem like a scam because again, you're not necessarily getting paid out for those days that you accrue. You're getting a lump sum based on an average of whatnot. So, it has its plus or minuses. It's a policy that I believe is best suited for the new work environment, the hybrid work environment that we're at, where people are already sort of working from home. So now you'll just be able to actually shut off the camera and, like you said, take that time off away from your workstation to, enjoy your tea, go for a longer walk, be with family members, things of that nature, versus, constantly looking at notifications on your phone or your watch or your laptop or things like that, even though you're not working in the office. So I'm all for trying it out. Hopefully we see some good results from it, and it can expand to other businesses and other companies and other thinking strategies. What is our last sort of business?
Well, I've got one more, and it has to do with gaming. Big surprise there. I'm going to get, for the Ubisoft fans out there, there are reports that Ubisoft Plus may be coming to Xbox consoles this month. Now, for me, old Rainbow Six fan, bring it on. Be glad to see it. But this is a year after it was first announced and first mentioned that it may be coming to Xbox and PlayStation for the folks out there. And the rumor is that it's coming on January the 25th. Now, for the folks that are not familiar with who Ubisoft actually is, think Assassin's Creed, Far Cry, Watch Dogs Legion, Rainbow Six. The report that it's coming roughly January 25th was on Twitter by an industry analyst. Let me make sure I get this name right. Morano NL, who seems to have a little bit of inside information. Now, it is rumored that this will be kind of like EA Pass is on Xbox now, where if you don't subscribe to the premium Xbox Game Pass, there is an extra fee for EA. I think the EA fee is $9.99 a month if you buy it separately. This could be an extra $14.99 a month, or I'm sure there'll be some kind of bundle in there to where you get all three for a certain price. And this could be leading us down the road of something we talked about in last week's podcast too. Is Game Pass getting ready to undergo some sort of subscription changes? Or the subscriptions in general getting ready to go up? Or are they getting ready to, reclassify those? Personally, big fan of seeing everybody join into the subscription game. Sure, be careful out there spending. subscriptions add up, folks. $10 here, $10 there. Next thing you know, you're spending $100 on gaming every month. So, my PSA of the day would be careful of what you're spending. But for the Ubisoft fans out there, hey, I'm glad to see it. I'll go download all the Rainbow Six games and all the Assassin's Creed games day one.
Yeah, I think it's awesome. It's just yet another way that Microsoft is and its partners are making gaming more accessible. They're kind of tearing down those walls that used to be the old fiefdoms of I have my platform and you need to have my email domain, and you need to sign up for these things and you can't access it anywhere else. And now it's like, all right, well, you still need to sign up for it, but you can access it. You can get a hold of these games in other ways, in other platforms, things that are easier for you to just play the games. Because once I get you playing the games, then I can get you buying stuff. So I think there's finally that acknowledgement that like put them where people can play them and can reach them easily, and the money will flow.
That's always been ever since Phil Spencer took over, being, the head of Xbox. What was his first gaming everywhere? It was either gaming everywhere or gaming anywhere. I forget, which
I think it's
word.
gaming anywhere, right?
He used gaming anywhere, and I think, we're finally starting to see that, and it's nice to see these third-party companies, partners of Microsoft, embracing it and bringing their library over. And, something we're not talking about this week, maybe it's got something to do in the back of people's minds with the whole Activision thing, you've got more and more software coming to Xbox, and maybe Ubisoft says, hey, we need to get in on this game too. So come the end of this month, in about 10-12 days, we'll see if this rumor is true. I hope it is. I'll be subscribing and doing some downloading.
You can get a big old ditto from me on that. And with that being said, we want to thank everyone for hanging out with us for another weekend. We hope you enjoyed the conversation, any of the news. If you have any things you'd like to share with us, you can always reach us. Reach me at Mindhead1 on Twitter. Where can people reach you?
David PAJ1978.
Yeah, and if Twitter's not your jam and you haven't figured out Mastodon like me, you can always reach me in the comments of any of my articles. I do read those, so we can have a conversation going for that. Let us know what your thoughts are on Service Duo, Microsoft 365 being $1.99, or the new things that are coming to Xbox. We'd love to talk to you guys. Thank you.
Take care, folks. We'll see you next week.